All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. We're doing the debate of the century, Mr. Batman versus Atheist Junior. This is going to be an informal debate. They're going to have a back and forth and make their points and address each other's points. I'm going to try not to moderate too much as to not interrupt the conversation, but I am here if needed. I guess y'all can begin your conversation. Whoever wants to start, go ahead and take over.
Mr. Batman can go first.
Okay, there we go. I'm trying to make sure everything's working right here. All right, well, I am Mr. Batman. I am a proclaimer of the Messiah and that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And that him being the perfect God who never changes, we can count on him and his covenant. See, I have a covenant with that living God, the living God who makes me promises, promises made, promises kept. How can I help you today, sir?
Well, I've seen several of your debates, and you tend to, or it seems that it's a pattern that you, well, use something called the tag or transcendental argument, or I don't know if you're arguing for the existence of God, but you seem to talk about that the law that it's necessary that God must have created the laws of logic. Is that accurate? What you
No, sir.
argue?
It is totally inaccurate. As a matter of fact, my position always has been as that the laws of logic are eternal, universal, and unchanging. But they are contingent on something other than themselves. They are not self-existent, they are not self-explanatory, and they sure do not create anything. So, I say that these laws of logic are contingent upon the mind of the living God. It's how God's mind works, logically, mathematically.
Okay, so you're saying that God did not create the laws of logic? They were just
No, sir.
when they've always existed as God has always existed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Uh, okay. Well,
Not right now.
so I don't see how that makes sense because logic is a description of reality. God created our universe and our reality. No, then if did he not? So if how could
Yes,
there
sir, he
be
did.
laws of logic? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, he did create everything. He created our reality, and he created different laws that dictate how this reality works. Now, you just mentioned that these laws of logic are only descriptive. That's not true. They are prescriptive as well as descriptive. But let's just go ahead and run with this. Let's say that they are only descriptive. Sir, how does that explain anything for you? How does that, the laws being descriptive now, how does that explain what causes them to be and what causes them not to change over time? How does them being descriptive answer those questions?
Well, I'm not sure if it does or not. I'm not making that
It doesn't,
claim.
sir.
What
I'll make you sure it doesn't.
doesn't?
So please continue.
Okay. Well, because I mean, to me, it seems that God would have had to create laws of logic if I
Relevant.
even well, it is relevant because if God is
No, sir.
supposed to be
In the
eternal,
beginning of the universe,
then
could the universe have both existed and not existed at the same time in the same way?
I wasn't done talking. If I
Yes,
could
sir,
just
you
finish my
were.
sentence, that'd
Sir,
be
in the
nice.
beginning of
No,
the
I
universe,
wasn't. I
could
was
the universe
mid-sentence
have
and you
both
interrupted me.
existed at the same
Hey,
time
hey,
in the same
Batman.
way?
Let's take our turns and not over talk people, please.
Yes, I don't mind doing that. But again, I don't debate, I simply teach. And if this person is not willing to learn, then I'm not willing to stay. Now, Mr. Junior, again, the problem is you don't seem to be using adequate definitions. Now, if we're going to be talking about such things as laws of logic, would you agree, sir, that laws of logic are eternal, universal, and unchanging?
I'll grant you that, but I'd like to make my argument
I
now, if
didn't
that's
ask you if
okay.
you
But
would
I'll let
grant
you
me
finish.
anything, Skippy. I said, would you agree? That's a yes or no answer question.
He granted that, and then he requested to give an argument. Is it all right if he gives an argument real fast?
I'm answering. Yeah, I answered yes. That's what that means. Is yes.
Thank you, sir. As long as you're answering concisely. Now, again, since the laws of logic are eternal, universal, and unchanging, and they must pre-exist the physical world, that's why I was asking you that question in the beginning of the cosmos, everything that ever was. Could the universe, the cosmos, both exist and not exist at the same time in the same way? Let me help you with that. No. Why? Because that would violate the law of non-contradiction as well as the law of identity. So that tells us something very important, that the laws of logic pre-exist the physical world. So, sir, descriptive power of the physical world cannot be the reason the laws of logic exist. Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying. Now, I answered your question. Now I'd like to pose my argument and ask you a question, if that's fine. So I would argue that, yeah, I would agree that the laws of logic had to predate the Earth because humans, we use laws of logic in a descriptive way, yes, but my argument is that I think that God would have had to have created the laws of logic, and that would mean that God existed causally prior to the laws of logic, which would mean that equally God did not exist causally prior to the laws of logic, because the logic did not exist to make God, i.e. God exists or God does not exist. If logical syllogisms like that can't exist because the concept hasn't even been created yet, then it's logically impossible that God could have created laws of logic or exist at all.
I'm sorry, Skippy. How did you identify that position without the law of identity?
I'm not saying I did.
Yes, you did. You just identified a position and presented it to me. Now, sir, you've identified a position. You've identified me to present to me this position that you identified. Where does the law of identity come from so you can do this in the here and the now? Sir, I could care less about the past. Don't care. Sir, I'm talking about right here, right now. Let's do science right here, right now. Let's walk into that laboratory, and we are going to have to depend on laws of logic, laws of mathematics, laws of physics, laws of chemistry. Sir, and that's in the right here, right now, that we can observe. What causes them?
I don't think you have a proper understanding of how science works in the first
place. I
place.
asked you a question.
So,
what causes the laws to exist in the here and now so we can do science in the here and now? I don't care about the past.
Why would you not care about the past?
Here and now.
I mean,
we
learn from the past. No, we learn from the past.
Living in the here and now, not.
No, it's impossible to actually live in the present. We're living in the past constantly because that's how time and our understanding of reality works. You can't actually observe the present because it's constantly moving along. That's how time works. And no, they didn't come from anywhere because it's descriptive of our reality. They're not a physical thing. You're saying that they're the embodiment of the God of the mind of God. How did you figure that out? How do you know
position? How do you know that, Taco, when it comes to intelligence? Because this guy ain't got none.
How do you know that the laws are of an embodiment of the mind of God? How did you come to that conclusion, and how do you know it's true?
The audience is requesting to ban you, and I'm not gonna ban you, obviously, but can you please be a little nicer in conversation? We would really appreciate that, please.
Sure. As soon as this idiot actually wants to learn something and answer a question. Now, again, Skippy, in order for you to have the physical world, it has to have the laws of logic pre-existent. I don't care about your opinion. Don't care about the past. What causes them right now? So you and I can go into the laboratory and do scientific experimentation using laws of logic, laws of mathematics, laws of physics, laws of chemistry. Sir, what causes them to work right now?
What causes the laws of logic to work right now?
Any law. Pick it, sir, I really don't care. You've got no answer for any of them.
Okay. Well, I would say that if we're talking about laws of chemistry, like the laws of thermodynamics, the reason that those work, I don't know how you're defining work, but the reason that they function the way they do, the reason is because they're based on
identify
based
things
on
so you
more
can see them
fundamental.
in
Chemistry is based on more
Remember, we
fundamental
don't know what
processes
identifying
of
because work, sir.
molecular science,
Is there a problem
molecular
with that?
interactions, and on an even smaller scale than that, you have the quantum realm where we have protons, neutrons, and within those quarks, up quarks, down quarks, strange quarks. So all of going down or up this ladder
Identify all those
of
things, sir. How did you
smaller and
identify
smaller individual pieces make up
all
our
those
reality. The
weird
reaction of those
names?
molecules are what
Wait a minute,
cause
sir. Hang on a second.
the effects of
Does
chemistry,
not the law of
because heat
identity
is
have
just
in the
the
quantum
vibration of
realm
molecules.
as well?
So that's your answer,
Apparently, you're not interested in
and
the
you're being
conversation.
very
You're not
rude.
interested in
So
dealing with it
I'm
anymore. Have a
done.
nice
You can go
day.
ahead.
No, sir, he wasn't. He wasn't doing a damn thing. Have a
Anybody else want to debate Atheist Junior? Let's pull up noted.
Did he leave or did he get booted?
He definitely left. I got
He
your
left?
present though.
I mean, I can't
Oh.
speak for too long, Taco, but I don't mind speaking for like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well, shucks, hold on. How do I put this on loudspeaker? I'm on my phone, Taco. How do I put it on loudspeaker on my iPhone?
Well, you should be able to go into your actual phone app because I know for StreamYard, I know we're not on StreamYard, but for StreamYard, if it's on the phone, I think the phone will also treat it as a call. So you might be able to go to your phone menu and turn on speaker there. I'm not sure. I can hear you fine. That's what you're asking.
Okay. Man, this sucks. I guess I'll just have to like put it to my ear while I speak to you. Yeah. So AtheistJunior, I wasn't there for the entire thing, but I heard you all were discussing the laws of logic. All right.
Attempting to.
Yeah, well, I think what Mr. Batman is trying to derive is that if the physical universe is all that is, it's not implicit that you can say that the laws of logic has stemmed from it, right? Because they're two different they're completely two different realms, right? So if you can make a bridge between the laws of logic and the physical properties of the universe, then I can say, all right, well, you know what? God might be not as eminent as we think, right? What would you say to that? How would you justify that the laws of logic that exist in a conceptual world has relevancy to purely physical mechanics? How can you justify that?
Okay. I'm a little bit confused by what exactly you're asking because you mentioned a fair number of different things there, but I guess I would say that to answer just the question you asked at the very end, and then you can, if I miss something, you can restate it when I'm done. But I think the reason that laws of logic, which are conceptual, have a relation to our physical world is because we have to use those in order just to communicate, like me and you are doing right now.
Sorry. Okay, well,
just simple things like two things can't occupy the same thing in physical space. I mean, that's pretty apparent. I mean, go ahead.
No, well, the thing is, I have no problem with making an association with the output, the output of the laws of logic, but I want the source, like the emergence of it. Physical properties can only go so far. You know what I mean? So I think what Mr. Batman was trying to say is that the laws of identity and these certain things, what upholds these things, what creates the consistency of these things, because we don't have energy saying, okay, well, this is good and this is bad. We don't have heat energy saying, well, you know what, 1 + 1 is 2, right? So the emergence of the laws of logic is more an inference for a supreme consciousness or a consciousness that is divine, right? Because if the consciousness is divine, then we can solidify the two realms that we have, the conceptual world and the physical world. But to say that morality itself and the whatever constitutes along those lines, it's very, very hard to retract it to a physical universe, right? So it's more plausible to say, okay, well, if this is the case, then there must be a strong possibility that there is a God, right? If you so is your possibility in God completely null?
Okay, so I want to respond to something you just said, because you said you used the word inference, and you said that the laws of logic are based on or lead to an inference of this divine intelligence. And I'm sorry, I had to just flat out disagree with that, because the inference is defined as something that's a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. So what evidence do you have that you saw that? What evidence do you have of this divine voice that you say is apparent? When did you
Well,
hear the voice of God, basically, is what I'm asking.
okay, so the conclusion is that if we can't find, if we don't have the physical means to give the elaborated process of the, you know, of the mind and how it entails the decipherment of logic, then, you know, we have to, the only way that we can really justify it is to say that it was sourced from something greater than the physical universe, you know. So, and the reason I use the word divine is because within that understanding, we can accept that there was something that merged these two things together, right? Because we can't say the physical universe merged something beyond its nature, but what we can say is that an omnipotent God can, right?
Okay, you didn't really answer my question. Maybe I can rephrase it and saying, have you ever heard the voice of God?
Have I ever heard the voice of God?
Or a divine voice?
No, I've never heard the no. That's to be concise, no. But there's times where I've been in life in a very low state in my life, or trying to figure out things that are for my greater good. And sometimes I feel as if my own intuition, as if God is talking to me. But I will not say in absolute that it is God. But what I will say is that if God is good and I need to make my way out of this imperfect life, then I innately know what God is telling me. You know? So for instance, like if I know I have this girl in my life and I know that I don't entirely love her, right? I would be like, God, what do I do? And then somehow, whatever reason that I get from knowing who God's nature is, I come to an understanding that this is what God would say, but it is not absolute of what God is saying, right? Because we're not only defined by our physicality, we are mainly defined by our understanding of morality, right? So, yeah, I truly think that when we listen to our heart and ourselves and our intuition, we can understand that that could be God. But I can't say that it could be, like, let's say I have this intuition for the ultimate state of what is good. I can't say I got it from, you know, nucleotides. I can't say that, but it is definitely more of the heart and more coherent to say I have this from God, right? So it's more of my justification to the implicit and explicitness of reality, right? Even there's many quantum physicists that will tell you that knowledge itself is not treated as a process. Many physicists will, everybody could agree on that. It's not treated as a process in the universe. Knowledge is something that must, by biological necessity, come from omniscience, because knowledge is what dictates logic. Logic cannot stand alone. And if you have a source that knows everything and is everything, then you can derive categories and divisions of logic. But you cannot get a finite logic creating such possibility. You need infinite nature of God.
Okay. You said basically that logic is the foundation of knowledge, and again, I'm going to have to disagree because
No,
I
no,
would
no, no,
say
no,
that
no.
belief is the found. Or sorry, you're not saying that.
No. What I'm saying is that logic can't stand by itself, right?
But you just said that knowledge is required to basically believe that God exists for knowledge to. Or what were you
No,
saying?
what I'm trying to say is that if you are so tied to the physical universe being all that there is, then why can it not give me an elaborated process to knowledge itself? Because I can't find or tangibly search for knowledge in the universe. But what I can do is I can access my consciousness and find it, right? So
Okay,
there is
I'm not. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you, but it's just when you speak for a long time, and you're saying like respond to one
right.
thing, and I'm gonna forget what you were talking about. So if you
That's
could
fine.
just maybe stick to one claim at a time or question, I would just appreciate it. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm just trying to say, like, even being someone who is of science, it's not adequate enough for me to just say, well, okay, I accept what is, because what is always bringing about questions, and in that realm of questions, God seems to be the most accepted gap of for all the gaps in our universe, right? I think
Well,
the question I have to
do
ask you is
do you mean gaps in understanding?
I think the question I have to ask you is what is
Well, no,
upholding the consistency of the
let me
laws of identity?
respond to what you just said though. So, is before you go to something else, you said that God. Are you saying God is explaining the gaps in our knowledge because that's just the definition of God of the gaps fallacy?
Well,
Because
the problem
I
is
just wonder.
the only entity that can possess omniscience, right, is God. So if we do get a finite amount of knowledge, it must come from that state,
You keep
right?
saying that. You keep saying knowledge must be, or the origin of knowledge must be God. God must explain this. How do you know that?
No, well,
Why?
I'm justifying it on the most coherent understanding. Like I'm trying to say that well, if the physical universe is void of treating knowledge as a process, then God is concluded to be the most viable understanding to it,
Well, just
right?
because it's the most easy to understand doesn't mean it's the correct explanation.
Well, the problem is that in life we weren't. The problem is that space-time is only giving us a certain amount of parameters. It's not giving us
What does
God
that
and
mean?
something greater than God. It's giving us God as the ultimate state.
What do
So
you
it's
mean
not
by
like I'm
parameters?
formulating
Hold
this.
on, hold on.
It's more that it is inevitable, right?
But what do you mean by parameters, though? You said space-time gives us a limited amount of parameters. How are you defining the word parameters
Well,
or using it?
well, we know that when we reason things, um, just the mere fact. Okay, so let's take for example, God says, I am who I am. I am the greatest I am, right? So and when we look at Descartes and we look at philosophy, I think, therefore I am, right? So for me, I can't necessarily see nucleotides being of a divine nature to emerge that state. It's too complex, it has too much, to its value to say, okay, well, it was just nucleotides. When nucleotides are purely inanimate, purely reactive to physical properties, it's not supplying me with enough merit to say, well, okay, then it's not God. It's more saying, well, it could be God.
Well, I'm going to disagree that nucleotides are not animate because they are part of sugar chains that are, nucleotide sequences are what make up our DNA and our chromosomes, and they are very active within the cellular construction of our bodies and our DNA. So, and they, but again, like
Hmm.
you're saying that I can understand, I think, where you're coming from, where that it seems like humans are more than the sum of their parts, and I would agree they are. But there's a reason.
Exactly.
But that you see you do you think humans are animals? Let me ask you that.
No, that's why we have the label human or the name human. That's what differentiates us from animals, right? But we have similarities, yeah. I'm
Okay,
not
but
gonna
what
deny
what
that.
separates us? What makes us a higher order than the common animal?
That we have identity. We have to be justified by our wrongdoings. Animals don't. These kind of things. Like you know what I mean?
Are
Um,
you saying animals don't feel emotions, like they don't feel guilty? They don't feel guilt for things?
no. We all know innately that animals have a lower form of consciousness than us. This is why we don't put them in jails. They can't really create a very interactive or justification of morality. They are more of autonomy than we are, right? Because we're not putting animals in jail, right?
Well, we put
We
them in
know that they,
cages.
huh?
We put them in zoos. We put them in cages. That's kind of like jail.
I know what you're saying, but it's they are not translating it in the depth because they don't possess the logic
We
that we
don't
have.
hold them accountable in the same way that we would if a human killed something. It's like that's if a gorilla kills someone, they don't treat it
Right,
the same way as the human does.
because we know that they are more simplistic than we are. That's why
Yeah,
we know.
they have intelligence, but they have a comparatively lower level of intelligence to humans. I
Right,
think that's fair to say.
right. That's what I would agree on.
Right, but
But they
that
are
doesn't
emotional,
mean
just as we are.
that doesn't mean we're not animals, though. Because I would actually argue that dogs. I think just because we can't communicate with animals doesn't mean that we know they can communicate with each other. Like whales and dogs, for example, they use noises to communicate. Monkeys have all types of calls in the wild, and gorillas too. But um, if
Mm-hmm.
you I think dogs have a higher level of intelligence that some people might give them because we all seen a dog when you come home and they've done something wrong and they look obviously guilty, and that's an emotional intelligence that I think you definitely don't see in other animals because animals themselves have a hierarchy of knowledge too. But I think that um, the reason that I think we have this difference in intelligence and the thing that makes us so separate is our intelligence. It's not because of
Exactly.
God, it's because of evolution that happened
Okay,
and the
well,
way we evolved.
we're going to another topic here, right? I'm trying to keep it short, but like what I'm fundamentally saying to you. I mean, well, we've definitely pivoted, but what I'm trying to say is
That's
that
fair.
animals definitely have, they experience emotions. Like I know my
Sure.
cat, gets angry when I don't feed her on time, stuff like this. But if they feel pain, the depth of their pain is not the depth of our pain. You understand what I'm saying? Because they more have a pre-instilled knowledge in them. They don't need to go to school. They don't need to learn certain things. They just be, right. We, on the other hand, we are less of autonomy and less of being passive. We are more integrated, more active in reality, right? We have to go to school. We have to be tested. All these things. So what I'm trying to say is like we have a depth to us that animals don't have. And so if that is the case, then our pain is going to be greater than their pain. And our perspective is going to be greater than their perspective. Because animals don't know what the definition of God means. Because they weren't taught it and they don't have the capacity to even learn it. Even if we were to use the same wavelengths that they use when they bark and try to teach them something, they're not going to understand, because they only have limitations to their frequencies. When they literally bark in like you can predict how much things they say, right? With us, we have a very more infinite amount of things that we can say, right? So for when I look at it, animals are definitely a reduced form of our consciousness. But I know for a fact, if I have to feel pain, I know I'm going to feel the pain greater than the animal is, not on a physical level, but on an emotional and intellectual level, right? So that's my whole point. Like, yes, I'm not trying to put animals on a whole different level, but I know for a fact that humans were made in God's image, not animals. I know that for a fact, right? When you look around us, you don't see animals creating, houses. You don't see them, very interactive. They're just passive. They're just there. You know what I mean? So for me, I don't see animals equated to humans. I think that they're relative, but not identical at all. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're done, I feel like maybe you're misusing the term autonomy, because autonomy means the capacity to govern oneself. And clearly, I would argue that humans have a higher level of that than any animals,
I
because
agree.
we are one of the only form of life on Earth, not the only, but that can recognize himself in a mirror and have a theory of individuality, which also chimps can do.
Well said.
One of our closest related ancestors, or we had a common ancestor. And again, that's why I'm saying that the explanation for this is you're saying it's a divine voice, which you've never heard.
Let me put it this.
But it's evolution.
No, let me put it this way for you. Every one of our fingerprint is unique, and every one of our faces, no matter how similar, is unique. But when you look at animals, they are very more a projection of an instillment rather than an ability to create or change itself or have a very complex understanding of identity. That is where we are made in God's image, right? Because our identity is greater than their identity. You understand? But there is still a similarity. And so I know for a fact I was created in God's image, right?
So, what you were watching, Mr. Batman? I don't know how much you saw. What made you come on here? Want to come on here after him? And what did you think about what he was saying?
I don't know. I joined late, but I think what I liked what he was saying is that, like, when I think about the laws of logic and the laws of identity, I think it holds such great power and weight that it makes me relate to such beauty, such divine. I can't find it anywhere else in the universe. Yeah, we may be able to manipulate logic and use it, but just the fact that we have it is it's a beauty. And I can't attribute it to anything else but the most beautiful being that is God. Right? So when I heard him saying those things, it inspired me to just want to talk for a bit, But the real question is, what upholds the laws of identity in a physical universe? That is the real question, right? What upholds it? It's not
I don't think anything
molecules.
opposes
It's certainly
it.
not. Because
What do you,
molecules follow the laws of logic. You understand? They don't uphold it. So what upholds it?
molecules? You're saying
Yeah.
molecules? But, okay, I mean, I'd agree.
Anything that has a kind of an awareness to it. You can't say that you know what I mean?
Yeah, but again, we observe that, two electrons can't occupy the same physical space, which is, I think, one, I don't know the laws off the top of my head, but we observe that. We see that there could be alternate realities where these laws are different, and those laws would probably still exist, but they would be descriptions of reality, but the descriptions would be different. But those would still be laws that you have to follow, because there's a difference between laws of like in chemistry versus laws that humans pass in courts, because those can be broken. You can't break the speed of light. So
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The consistency of the limitation to our universe, which is the speed of light, right?
okay, so
Like,
let me
what upholds
yeah.
that? What says that
Oh,
is that?
I'm sorry. Your accent is a little. I thought you were saying opposes, but you're saying upholds, right?
Right.
Like UPHLLD.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I thought you were saying something else. I'm sorry.
oh,
Um,
well, no.
I thought you were saying like opposes, like what
Yeah.
is rejects them. So I
Right.
misunderstood.
Yeah. No. My question.
I
Nah.
okay.
I
Okay,
mean,
well,
we
ask the
can
question again then.
accept it, right? But we can accept it. But I'm the kind of guy who's like, well, I need to know. I need to know, like, what has us in these states, like, what keeps this consistency, what says that this is right from wrong in a consistent state, like, what does that? And if it's not physical properties or physical means, I can't say God does not exist. I can't.
Okay. Well, I would say that again. This is what I was telling Mr. Batman. I don't know if anybody was able to hear me, but um, that it is upheld by physical processes because the way our reality functions is just it's a it's a function of the reality on a more and more fundamental level, just based on the atomic level and based on the molecular and quantum levels. These realities go smaller and smaller, but they all influence each other. And ultimately, it would be going back to the four fundamental laws of the universe, like or the four fundamental forces of the universe, like
Mm.
strong nuclear force, weak force, and those ultimately those are the stem of reality, and then humans and the way our reality works, and then the way we describe them, because the laws of logic itself is something that is, I think, just something that was just here before humans. But the concept is, it's an English word. We're just talking in English, describing it. So this is and the way we use logic. Philosophy is different for every culture and person, so it's malleable in a way. So it's not
Yeah.
unchanging. I would argue against the idea that it's unchanging, because philosophy has always been updating, and the origin of our modern logic system would be ancient Greece and a human describing it. So,
Well,
but
I
the
think
reality itself is going back to those four forces. Would be my answer. Um, and
I don't know.
if you don't mind, I'm gonna go get a glass of water, because you could just talk. I'll be back.
No problem. I think what I'm trying to say is, like, I think we accept the laws of logic, we accept certain things, but it's not enough. It's not enough to truly say, you know, okay, that's all that there is, right? When we look at the prominent factor, the definite factor is the physical universe. And to me, I can't see I can't see it upholding logic. I cannot see it truly upholding it. There's a big difference, right? I think that, yes, of course, we've manifested a lot of things on the lines of logic, but that's not the root of it. That's just, the manipulation of it, right? So I don't know, bro. I just think that I just wanted to step in for a bit and just kind of put into perspective that the physical universe cannot be all that there is, because when we look at explicit reality, we know, okay, well, what is in front of me is, okay, I have this chair, I have the floor, I have these things, right? But when we look at the implicit reality of things, I have to reason it into existence. I have to say, well, this is a chair, this is a wood, these are certain properties, right? So the merge of these two dimensions is just, it's not enough to say, well, that's all that is. It's calling for bigger question. And this is why God becomes an inevitability, right? Because you can't just say, I accept all that is. That's not scientific. That is not, philosophical. That's just being. And and a thinker will not accept that, right? So I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that the possibility of God is way more higher than not. And if you do want to find God, it can't be entirely through the physical universe. That's what I'm trying to say. It cannot be. I may be able to find a lot of things through the physical universe, but I can definitely not reduce emotions to physical reactions, because physical reactions in the brain, frequencies that emanate from my brain are not conclusive that they're making judgments for me, or my emotions that I feel. Right? It's just more an output of what I feel. Right? So
Okay.
it's
Well,
not.
I'm back. I was listening. But Taco, is there anybody else that wanted to come on and talk? But yeah, I just wondering.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you were saying. And I would be happy to talk about this with you more at some point, because
Yeah.
I definitely
Yeah, no, it's
I
fine. It's
appreciate
fine.
you.
I just wanted to just join in really quickly just on that topic, because to me it's always been very very unique, because there's a fine line between the physical universe and consciousness, and I think that if you can't just accept both, because they oppose each other, and this is why there's the hard consciousness problem. But yeah, bro, it was nice talking, and I just hope you understand that the possibility of God is greater than not, and that's all I really have to say on that. But
Yeah, well, I'll
next time I
definitely.
talk, I'll be a little more descriptive, but I just wanted to join in really quickly.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely think more about this conversation, and I appreciate you coming on and being more respectable than Mr. Batman was, and easier to talk to for sure.
Thank you, noted.
But I feel like this argument, it's just, I'm not feeling it. Hello,
Hi guys.
how's it going? Taco, you still around?
Yeah, I'm right here. So you want me to
What?
bring someone else up, right?
So ban
yeah.
Mr. Batman. Just ban him. Go ban him. Do it. Ban Mr. Batman. It's the best thing you could do. Ban him. Ban Mr. Batman.
Okay.
That was good input.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean,
Sorry,
I
Mr.
would
Batman didn't pan
say
out, man.
I'm willing to talk to him if he comes back on. Just just take turns. That's all it is.
He's already out and about doing his own thing, right?
I mean, if somebody can't take turns and would simply wait their turn to talk, I feel like either you missed out on some very key life skills in kindergarten and first grade, or you're just intentionally being you're just interrupting to kind of be a jerk, and I don't really see what's productive about that. If nobody can hear what you're saying, I mean, you're blocking the other guy, but people can't understand you either, dude. So what's the point? Sorry.
Right.
Hey there, how you doing?
Hey, good.
I was disappointed.
You've been in
that,
here.
by
You
the
saw
way.
the whole Mr. Batman thing, right?
Yeah, I did. I was there from the start. I got the notification.
How
Yeah,
long was
it's
he
a whole thing.
here? How long was he in
like
here?
9 minutes.
No
and
longer than 4
55
minutes.
seconds.
Oh, that one.
Really? Wow. Well, it felt longer than that, but just because talking to Mr. Batman feels like an eternity.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That was something else, definitely. I'm talking with you if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead. I don't know if we're still in debate mode, or if people are just coming on to talk, but I'm happy to do either. So
So it's like because I mentioned this to you earlier in response. in regards to something like mathematics being man-made and not natural. Can
All
you
right,
expand upon that for me?
Sure. Well, I think, obviously, I think it's fair to say that the modern mathematics we use, we couldn't use, it's fundamental, the number system that we use for it, and the way that we describe telling time, like I have a clock and it says 12:54 where I am. Well, those numbers were, that number system was invented, or I don't know if you could really say discovered, but popularized by, uh, Muslims and Islam. It's Arabic. So humans created the particular system, the numbers that we use, because obviously, and numbers are described in, we'll say English, but whatever language you're using. But we describe there are words that describe each number. So we have like 12, 13. Those are English words. So this is. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think you get what I'm saying. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
I get where you're coming from, and just to clarify, I am a Christian, so that's why I did want to apologize for what happened earlier with your little talk with him.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna maybe disconnect, maybe make it a little bit more secular, just for general understanding and whatnot. But God made the heavens and the earth and existence itself, so on and so forth. And part of that includes the number of things and how that relates to man, I suppose. And the arguments that I have specifically in mind is, like, in front of me is a curtain, and there is a number of objects behind it. I don't know what those objects are or the number of them. But regardless of my comprehension, my knowledge, or even me knowing if there is anything behind it beyond there or not, there's still going to be something regardless of my inputs. So I would argue that math and everything kind of connected to it is not a human invention, but rather a understanding of something that exists regardless of our inputs.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, and thank you for that example, because I love a good example that can make me understand something in a simple way. I appreciate that, but I would argue that I could see where you're coming from, but if you want, I would grant, like, making a distinction between, like, very simple mathematics as something that's totally unchanging, because this is something that Kent Hovind has brought up a lot, and I don't know if you've watched Kent before or his debates, but I was in an open mic debate to him talking about this, of him saying, like, that because he uses the same PowerPoint slides in all his debates and the same script, and everybody says, oh, you use a script, and he says, well, truth doesn't change. Is 2 plus 2 going to change? And my answer to him was, no, 2 plus 2 is likely, there's no reason for that to change, whether you're talking about our understanding of that concept, or even just the concept of 2 itself, or adding adding 2 objects together with another 2, and now noticing that there are more. But at the extremely highest level of mathematics, somebody like Terry Tao, and the equations and physics that have been developed, the equations, derivations that have been developed in physics, those do change constantly. That field is constantly changing, and I think those equations are something that's a rearrangement of concepts in mathematics. And I think when you're getting to the much more advanced level, and it becomes things like imaginary numbers, then you don't have a real world analog with that you can compare. That's purely something that's in the realm of conceptual. And so I think if you separate those, you could say that humans, that there's some element of mathematics that that always existed, but that humans took that foundation and expanded on it and made a much more complex system.
Well, I would disagree on that because and I'm not an expert on this, but I remember
Yeah, me neither.
in regards to our comprehension of, I suppose, the sciences, we used to think magnetism and electricity were two separate things or something along those lines. Um, so, like, yes, of course, human understanding of physics, of math, of what is physically present, that absolutely does change. But for there to be an understanding at all, there must be something to be present in the first place, regardless of our observation. And even if that observation itself does change, there will be a point in which we will get it right. I think that's fine to say.
Okay. Can you repeat the last thing you said, just really quick?
Sorry, if you could give me just one moment, please.
Yeah, no problem. Taco, if you're still listening, if it's okay, I wouldn't mind if we wrap this up. But I think this is going to make an awesome video. I'm assuming you said you're recording this whole thing. It'll be like Mr. Batman Rage Quits.
10 or 20 minutes.
That'll be great. And I would have liked to have talked to him for like a while, but I'm surprised he didn't accuse me of being a pedophile. Or I shouldn't say that, should I? What is going on in your side, by the way?
Is he that infamous here?
Oh yeah, people can't stand him. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Have you seen many Mr. Batman debates before?
No, this is my first time being on a stage, like, at all. In regards to like a Discord chat like this, I don't really tune into most of them. I'm just busy with work usually at this hour. But
yeah, it's weird, like I appreciate you being more respectful to talk to, but yeah, he is truly infamous is just the best word to describe Mr. Batman, because I can't recall a single debate or interaction with him and an atheist where he hasn't either started shouting for no apparent reason, cutting people off, and just being standoffish and disrespectful is just the only word you can use. And then it got even worse, because then for some reason he got into this habit of every time he would debate an atheist, he would somehow twist and mold the conversation, no matter how unnaturally, into accusing either the other person of somehow being immoral somehow, or that atheism is immoral, or just bringing up really controversial and taboo topics and forcing it on the conversation when, like, the debate is supposed to be about Noah's flood. It's like, what does this have to do? Literally refusing to stay on topic so he could badmouth the other person. It's bizarre.
Not that this probably matters. Is he Catholic? Is he evangelical? Is he Orthodox?
I don't know off the top of my head, but he's certainly, I would say, evangelical. I don't think he's Catholic, but
okay, great. Okay, great. Now he represents us. I'm an evangelical myself.
Yeah. Okay. He's exactly like Darth Hawkins. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm sure he's been asked before, like what you just asked me, like do you call it a sect of Christianity? Is that what you call it? Like, different denomination. That's the word I was trying to think of yesterday, is denomination. I couldn't think of
denominations.
Yeah. If you asked him that question, he would like rattle off this extremely specific denomination that he has. So I would say it's probably not the same. Like, I wouldn't say he definitely doesn't represent you, even if he was the same. I don't consider him to somebody who represents Christians, maybe online Christians, unfortunately, but for some reason, like a lot of these online Christians on this community of just YouTube and streaming, Discord and stuff, a lot of them, not all of them, because I have some Christian friends that I really respect. Like Christian Pike is, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is on here a lot, and he does debates sometimes. He's debated Kent Hovind, and I thought he did a really great job against him. But he's a Christian, but he's much nicer. And so I know people like that. I don't consider them to represent anybody else but themselves. Just like I wouldn't want a really obnoxious atheist to reflect on me. And there are some
Yeah.
that I really think are, yeah, not no good. It's good. People are just people. Like there's good eggs and bad eggs, but Mr. Batman is just. Sometimes I have to wonder like who's the worst. But one day it's Darth Dawkins, one day it's Mr. Batman or Kent Hovind or Ray Comfort.
Yeah.
That's why I try to draw a separation between Christians and young Earth creationists specifically. Like I don't know if you fall in that category. You don't have to tell me if not, or either way.
Well,
But
I have my sympathies, but I honestly don't know enough to make an assertion one way or the other. It's just not
that's fine.
what I focus on.
Yeah, I respect that.
I'm more into, like I said, Jack immediate baptism. That's what I'm very much trying to in regards to theology. It's belonging to a
Yeah,
church.
and that's
There was-
fine. Like I think it's better to admit if I don't know something than rather to pretend like I do, because or to if it that I respect that. But what I don't like is like I did a debate with Jim Bob, who's a Christian, but at the beginning of the debate, so like he is a young Earth creationist and a flat earther, but
Oh,
he did not want when I asked him just outright if he was those things. I didn't ask him if he was a flat earther, but like I doubt he would have admitted it. And he just said that, like I asked him about the age of the Earth, and he said pretty much what you said. But and then we're in the debate. We're going on, and he's making arguments from Kent Hovind verbatim, who is a young Earth creationist, and he's making all these arguments that are the exact same arguments that somebody who is from the flat Earth community or people who are young Earth creationists, they like the exact same argument. So it's like, how is it that you're not in that company, but it's like it seems to me that he was. If somebody really doesn't know, I respect it more than somebody who's saying that they don't know, because if it's easier to try and poke holes in somebody else's position than it is to admit that I hold this position and then to try and defend that, it's much easier to just be on the offensive and say, oh no, I'm on the fence on this thing, but I consider that kind of cowardly. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
no. And then he did. Taco, are you still there? Did you see? Oh, you sent me the link. Never mind. To Jim Bob, he did a review of my debate, or if you can call it that. Jim Bob? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah.
I wanted to. The reason I kind of wanted to come out here in the first place, aside from the math thing, is you're aware of God of the Gaps and stuff, right?
Yeah, God of the Gaps.
So those two were speaking about, I suppose, spiritual presence or how God made things. I want to talk to you about just a little bit about confirmed biblical history.
Okay.
So I've and a lot of this stuff, from my point of view, is only a cursory glance. There like way more people know way more than me, but the number one example that I can think of in regards to a vindication, I suppose, of the Bible would be, for the longest time, the only reputable record that confirms the existence of the Hittite Empire was the Bible. And because there was no archaeological evidence or any recorded word or any type of real proof for the longest time, people said, oh, it's just a biblical story. Oh, it's just an analogy. Oh, it's proof why the Bible should not be trusted, because there is no proof. And more recently, over time, we are beginning to find, I think since the past 100 years or so, existence of the Hittite Empire. And some of the other civilizations around it, of course, like the Assyrians, ancient Egyptians, but like the Hittites, they had no history for the longest time, and now we're just finding it. And we're doing more along those lines. I believe they have found tablets of the existence of King David. They have found the archaeological dig sites of where Jesus did his healing of the blind, and it just goes on and on. So what I wanted to ask you there is, what would your response be to an archaeological or textual proof being revealed regarding one aspect or story or assertion from the Bible?
Well, I'm sure that there are going to be events in history that are going to corroborate and line up with the Bible, because people lived back then and they did describe events that happened. I would say that I don't have a problem with that. I would probably be able, if I research some of that stuff, I would probably think that there's maybe some some leeway being taken on certain elements. But yeah, I think that's very likely that elements of the Bible are true in terms of historical events and people who did exist. Like, I think that Jesus probably existed. I'm not a Jesus mythicist or whatever they call it, but my contention is that, so I can even grant you that whatever is on that list. But the thing is that when it comes to claims in the Bible of much more, like, not even supernatural things, just the fact that it said the biblical patriarchs are supposed to have lived up to ages of 700 and 900 years old, and I just, to me, there's no historical corroboration of a claim like that, which is a very important claim to the Bible, and to a lot of, like, this is what people, I'm not saying you're in this group, but this is what people like Kent Hovind base their entire belief on. What the age of the earth and the universe is that if you add up the ages of the biblical patriarchs, you get about to 6,000, which is what Archbishop James Ussher discovered, like, way back in, like, I think the 1600s. But we just don't see evidence of this, and because if we only get one set of teeth, you get a baby teeth and you get adult teeth. And
Yes.
If somebody lived for hundreds of years, you would see evidence of teeth, their molars wearing down to a level that we just don't see in skeletons that have been observed. So I really take issue with that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I don't know so much about the teeth. That's a good thought to have.
Yeah.
Somebody having 10 cents. But
I know it's kind of an all over the place argument, but
I think so. Just in regards to, I suppose, are you talking about proof or just general understanding?
well, I guess I'm just saying that, like, well, what do you think people could live that long, or do you think they could live hundreds of years? Do you think that those ages are accurate? Is my question.
I really don't think I could make an assertion. Now, you talked earlier about creationism. Now, like, I say I have my sympathies, not because I'm like hardcore creationist, of course, not because I really am into any sort of creationist theology.
Right.
I say that because in my family we have been to the Ark and the Creationist Museum. I know people who are creationists, so, like, I know their perspective.
So you've been to the Ark Encounter, or you've been to the Creation Museum? Is that what you said?
Yes, both the Ark Encounter and the Creationist Museum.
What did you think of the Ark Encounter?
Ark Encounter, well, for one, it was overpriced, so that's nice.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
For two, it's an experience, for one, and I think it is a marvel to behold. Of course, you are looking at what the Ark would have been, but in regards to what it has to say about being historical versus being biblical, I think it's more just they try to. I don't know if ham-fisted is the right way, but it's the way they come across. I'm just not sure. You know,
That's a good one. Ham-fisted, like Ken Ham. That's funny. I know you probably didn't mean it that way, but no, I agree. That is a good word to describe it, and it's funny. So
it's just what I don't understand is, for one, why people would try to hide that. Like, be open about what you believe is what I would certainly say. Um, but just in regards to you can justify it, I suppose, in regards to what the Old Testament says versus the New Testament versus archaeology versus what people have to say now. Um, I really do not think I could make an assertion with the level of knowledge that I know. And I don't say that to be a fence sitter. I say that because that's not something I am aware of living 900 years, 600 years with Noah's grandfather. And of course, there's the ark itself, and did the flood really happen? Um, but a lot of it, especially just because of the church that I attend, a lot of the message has more to do with Jesus Christ and the Father and the Holy Spirit rather than the Old Testament. So I would
Right.
say, actually, on that note, that depending on Old Testaments is not the right way to go about things, especially considering how the focus should be repentance and being God. But sorry, I'm kind of trailing off, kind of blabbing. If you want to just cut up here.
No, I definitely understand that. And I get what you're saying. But that's why, again, it's I have trouble with people like Mr. Batman who will not say something like that they would value one testament over the other, because they want to say that that's perfect. The Bible's completely perfect. But if I was going to do a devil's advocate argument for the ages, I would probably say that. So I've heard some Christians say that because the Egyptians also had similar ages for their kings, which were very high compared to
Yes.
what modern lifespans. And it's kind of funny in a way because they would say that, well, the Egyptians, they exaggerated the ages of their kings because they were they wanted their future children's children to look back and say, look at the kings, look how long they reigned, and to kind of make sure that their names were built up in history, and I would think like, well, it could be something similar here. Or I talked to Christian Pike about this same thing, and he was talking about how we can't be sure that exactly what the way that they measured time in the biblical era of if a month is the same or a year is the same thing. So there could be discrepancies there, which is a whole argument. That's the whole dispute, I think, between the young Earth creationists and old Earth, is that they say, well, does the Bible, in Genesis, is there like the gap theory? Is there a gap between the first, I think, two verses in the Bible, like that would account for the deep time of billions of years? And how long is a day? That's the thing I was trying to think of, because the
Yes.
6 days of creation, and some people will, like the young earthers will say that that's literally a 24-hour day, which is the same way
Yes,
that
I would. I would. I would definitely
versus
not say that.
yeah,
I would definitely not say that.
because what sense does it make for an eternal being like God if you're going to say that he's always existed and he doesn't have a concept of time that's so short the way a human being would do? Why, other than that's the time span that he planned for humans to use as a day, but it just seems like why narrow his creation down, especially if you think about how massive the universe is. To me, it's much more logical that if regardless of if it was a creation event or if it's just purely natural processes, it makes more sense that it would take an extremely long amount of time for such an unfathomably large universe to come into existence and to evolve, change, basically.
Yes, because for me, because the books in the Bible, because I wouldn't go so far as to say as there are some books more valuable than others. Just there's more in some more than others, I guess.
Yeah.
The books I'm the most concerned with are Genesis, Psalms, and Luke. Uh, and the part regarding it's very interesting actually when you get into what scholars have to say and how it relates to the way in which the Old Testament was written, why it was written that way. Because you compare the Abrahamic God, the Christian God, right? You take a look at him and his creation story, and you think of, well, how can I adequately and properly explain it to not just do its due diligence in how this is how it is done, but also to elevate it above those who are incorrect about the one true God and the one true way that the universe was created. So you look at the Egyptians or the Canaanites, or the Hellenicists, or the Babylonians, right? What they had to believe. And the creation of the universe, of the world, of life, of mankind, it was tumultuous. It was people fighting, gods fighting, people dying, like all of this chaos, all of this corruption, and year after year after year. And man is just a bystander into this. And then you compare that to the one true Christian God. For him, he was the only one. There was no resistance because he is this eternal supreme being, and he did everything. And he did all of it for us to exist in. He did all of it to create God's kingdom for us to inherit and live in. You look at that versus the various other stories, and that is a whole lot more meaningful than what you say.
So, Kaufman, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Oh, sorry. It's
Yeah, AJ said he needed to go like 20 or 30 minutes ago.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's
I wasn't looking.
not a big deal at all. I just want to let you know because I think he has stuff to do in real life.
Nah, I understand.
Okay, yeah.
What? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, if y'all want to call this a wrap, great talking though.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
appreciate
coming
it.
up. I hope you had fun. I'm sorry Batman rage quit like that. I brought up Noted immediately because I know Noted's always fun, right? Hopefully you had fun talking to Noted.
Yeah, well, so
Doesn't sound like you did.
yeah, thank you for coming on, Mr. Kaufman. I appreciate it. Another good conversation. So we were 2 for 3 then. 2 for 3. But yeah, people in the chat are saying that asking me to tell him to ban Mr. Batman. I mean, I think it's up to you, but I would say I would certainly not shed any tears if you ban Mr. Batman. Like,
I have no
clearly
power.
he has a track record of
Can you not hear me?
coming on these debates and just not wanting to participate in a way that's fair.
Can you
like,
not hear
to
me
the other
on
person,
Discord?
and it's just you have to wonder, like, you know.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Now I can. No, I didn't. It was,
Oh my god,
silent.
I didn't know that. I've been talking the whole time. I accidentally left to the side window earlier. Oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea my mic wasn't working. It showed me on the stream thing it working. So, because I did interrupt him and told him, okay, so I really appreciate you hanging out. I'm sorry. I thought my mic was working the whole time. You should have said something. That's why you kept saying, Taco, you there. Because I was here the whole time. So, I appreciate you talking with him. Did you have fun with Noted? I was hoping you would enjoy chatting with Noted.
Yeah, it was good. It was just I had a little bit of trouble with his accent, understanding some of the things he was saying. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was certainly, like I was saying in the chat, it's definitely more pleasant than the previous conversation I had.
I can't believe Mr. Batman rage quit in 10 minutes. It's like, really, Mr. Batman, we love you, bro. We're trying to have a talk.
Yeah, it seemed like he didn't even try.
No, he said at about 4 minutes when I messaged you, and I was like, oh no, it's over. He's gonna do the thing. That was right after he said, I'm here to teach. When he said, I'm here to teach, the debate was over.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, like, because I think it was funny. I was sort of going out of my way to just be as calm as possible, just to make him look even crazier. And I didn't interrupt him, but I took a little trick out of Mark Reed's playbook, which is he's better at this than I am. But if you have somebody trying to overtalk you, to just keep going and just don't stop. And I feel like he didn't appreciate that, because it's what he wants. He wants to shout people down and then to be the only person talking. But like I was saying, because then you're getting your message out, no matter how ineffective it is for anybody hearing Mr. Batman's message. I mean, who knows? I don't know who's listening, but he's trying to get that out there ultimately. Because why else would you shout somebody down and overtalk them, other than you want to get your religious propaganda to as many ears as possible? Because to me, I can't see any other reason why he would take the time to come on for a debate other than that selfish reason. But see, if I'm just gonna keep talking, then nobody can understand what either person is saying, and then it just becomes pointless but hilarious. So
Yeah,
that's my way of fighting back.
I was really disappointed when Mr. Batman was talking to you, and then you responded to him, and then you asked a question back, and he stopped for a half a second, and then middle of the question started like asking you another question or something, or like ramming into. It's so disappointing.
Do you mean when I was trying to ask the question, or like
he interrupted you every time you spoke?
Pretty much.
Literally every time you spoke. Like he'd be like, all right, so I have this question, right? He'd ask the question, and then you would respond to the question, and he would let you respond to the question, and then you would ask something, and then he would, like in the middle of you asking, jump in and interrupt you, and then start talking at you, and then you would be like, hey, I want to go back, and then he'd like, whoa, you're interrupting me, or what? It was really bad. I can't wait to review this.
I look forward to rewatching this